A bag of chips, a bar of chocolate, or your daily coffee suddenly costs more, and it feels random. One week it is normal. The next, the price jumps. No warning, no clear reason. But these price spikes are not random at all. They are the visible cracks of a massive, fragile system most people never see. And once you understand what is really happening behind chips, chocolate, and coffee, you start to realize how easily the entire system can be shaken. Because these are not just snacks or drinks. They are global supply chains stretched to their limits. And today, we are going to follow that hidden journey. From farms and factories to shipping routes and store shelves, to uncover why these everyday products suddenly become expensive. Let's start with something simple. A bag of potato chips. It looks cheap, basic, almost trivial. Potatoes, oil, salt, packaging. That's it. But here is the weird part. Each of those simple ingredients comes from a completely different system. Potatoes come from large-scale farms that depend on stable weather, fertilizer, and fuel. The oil might come from sunflower, palm, or corn, often grown in entirely different countries. Salt is mined or evaporated, then processed and transported. And the packaging. That is petroleum-based plastic or laminated material tied to oil prices. So when you buy one bag of chips, you are actually buying into a chain that spans agriculture, energy, mining, chemicals, and logistics. That sounds manageable until one link breaks. And this is where the whole system changes. If a drought hits potato farms, yields drop. If fertilizer prices rise, farmers plant less. If fuel becomes expensive, transportation costs surge. If cooking oil becomes scarce, factories slow down. Each small disruption adds pressure. Individually, they seem minor. Together, they push prices up fast, and chips are actually one of the simpler products. Now let's move to chocolate, because this is where things get more fragile. Chocolate begins with cocoa beans, mostly grown in West Africa. Millions of small farmers depend on stable weather, healthy trees, and predictable harvests. But cocoa trees are extremely sensitive. Too much rain, too little rain. Disease, pests, any of these can wipe out large portions of a harvest. And this next step is where things get interesting. Unlike many crops, cocoa farming is not easy to scale quickly. You cannot just plant more trees and harvest next season. Cocoa trees take years to mature. So if supply drops today, the shortage can last for years. Now combine that with global demand. Chocolate consumption keeps rising, especially in growing economies. So you get a situation where demand is climbing, but supply cannot keep up. That alone would raise prices. But it gets worse. Cocoa has to be shipped across oceans, processed into butter and powder, blended with sugar and milk, then turned into final products. Every step depends on energy, labor, and transportation. If shipping routes are disrupted, costs rise. If energy prices spike, factories pay more. If currencies shift, imports become expensive. So when chocolate prices jump, it is often the result of multiple pressures hitting at once: weather, farming limits, global demand, and logistics all colliding. And then there is coffee. This might be the most sensitive of all, because coffee depends on very specific conditions. Most of the world's coffee comes from a narrow band around the equator. High altitudes, stable temperatures, and consistent rainfall. If any of that shifts, production suffers. And here is the problem. Climate patterns are becoming less predictable. Frost in Brazil, drought in Vietnam, heavy rains in Colombia, each of these can reduce output significantly. But here is the twist. Coffee is traded globally as a commodity, which means prices are not just driven by supply and demand, but also by market speculation. Traders buy and sell coffee futures based on expectations. If they think supply will drop, prices rise immediately, even before the shortage fully hits. That sounds simple until you see what happens next. Roasters, distributors, and retailers react to these price signals. They adjust their contracts, raise prices, or limit supply. So by the time you notice your coffee getting more expensive, the system has already reacted multiple times. And it is not just about the beans. Coffee requires packaging, shipping, roasting, and retail operations. Each of those layers adds cost. So when energy prices rise or shipping slows down, coffee prices follow. Now step back and look at all three products: chips, chocolate, and coffee. They are completely different ingredients, different regions, different production processes, but they all share one thing. They rely on long, global supply chains with very little margin for disruption. And this is the hidden truth most people never notice. Modern convenience is built on tight efficiency. Companies try to minimize waste, reduce inventory, and move products as quickly as possible. That makes things cheaper during stable times. But it also makes the system fragile, because there is very little buffer. If something goes wrong, there is no cushion. Prices have to adjust quickly, and this is why spikes feel sudden. The system absorbs pressure silently until it can't anymore. Then prices jump. Sometimes it is a bad harvest. Sometimes it is a fuel crisis. Sometimes it is a shipping bottleneck. Sometimes it is all of them at once. And in many cases, these disruptions are happening more frequently. Climate shifts, geopolitical tensions, rising energy costs, and growing demand are all adding stress to the system. So what feels like a random price increase is actually the visible result of a global network struggling to stay balanced. And once you see that, it changes how you look at everyday products. That bag of chips is not just a snack. That chocolate bar is not just a treat. That cup of coffee is not just a drink. They are the final step of a complex system that stretches across continents, industries, and economies. And when something goes wrong anywhere along that chain, you see it at the checkout counter. So the next time prices spike, it is not just inflation or bad luck. It is a signal, a sign that somewhere, deep in the system, something has shifted, and that shift is finally reaching you. If you enjoyed this, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden systems behind everyday life.